Welcome. This is Astrology Insight Now, a weekly forecast program with astrology and other ways to help you make the most of your week and to heighten confidence for daily life. It's run by Pamela Cuccinell, that's me, the astrologer, and I invite you to find out more about my work at insightoasis.com. I look forward to your joining us every week. Please share with your friends, and here we go. We're going to talk about the week of August 4th, 2025. And this is going to be quite a week, I think. There is a lot of building that's occurring. And for those of you who listen a lot or follow astrology and other places or have your eye in any way on the news and what's happening in the world, you know that there's a lot of change that we are all experiencing. And we are seeing things move to a certain crescendo or momentum, and it's building. Now, what happens this week is that we have challenging aspects, and that means the planets in the sky from our perspective have what we call hard geometric relationships to one another, and then long void of courses. Now, the void of course moon, when that occurs, what's happening is as the moon's traveling through the sky, it's not making any geometric pictures with other planets. And so void times in general are times to chill, work on things already in motion. Don't expect to sign the dotted line, meet someone very important for the first time who's going to change your life, or be that deal that makes everything fall into place. Also, Mercury is retrograde. It goes direct next week, but as it kind of slows in motion, as it's positioning itself, well, it's going in a regular orbit, but Earth's orbit in tandem with Mercury's orbit around the sun makes it seem to us as though Mercury is moving backwards. And so when it's approaching what we call a station where it seems to turn around, whether direct or retrograde motion, it looks as though that fast-moving planet is actually moving slower. But it's not. It's just Earth's rotation is different, or rather not its rotate. Well, not to get too scientific, but since the planets move around the sun at different velocities due to their nearness to the sun, this phenomena at times occurs to us visually. And what it means to an astrologer is that communication, how we reach out, connect, transmit information, requires a reorientation. And if we move too quickly or assume too much or don't double check things tend to, dates get put in wrong, words get misspelled, people understand one thing when someone intended the other, appointments are not what someone thinks it is, stuff like that happens. So this week, that's going on. The other thing that's happening is that Mars will be changing sign. Mars has been in the sign of Virgo, and it will be moving into the sign of Libra, an air sign. So that means not only do we have the outer planets from Saturn on in air or fire signs, so the signs that move quickly in a way, the yang sign, but now Mars is moving into Libra. So what that all means is that we are on the precipice of more change, but with the void of courses and Mercury retrograde, we're also in a place of kind of stops and starts. And so the important thing to keep in mind is priorities, super, super necessary as we enter this week. And the other thing I hadn't mentioned is that we're in the waxing moon cycle. The full moon occurs later in the week, and I will be talking about that. So we are in this building, this momentum. That being said, it's momentum with a lot of adjustments, stops and starts, really benefits from reevaluation, prioritizing, understanding how you want things to go. Because once things start going, they move very, very quickly. So to talk more deeply about this week, Monday the 4th, the moon is in the sign of Sagittarius, fire sign, mutable energy, very changeable, adaptable, wants to be inspired by action. Again, move quickly. And we will experience a lot of that on Monday the 4th. Oh, go with that. How about this? Also, there may be more options that get thrown into the mix. And that's why prioritizing is so important. Know what really needs to be attended to this week, because we may be invited, get opportunities, new situations come in that tease us away from what seemed to be the most important thing. And if we lose sight of what the most important thing is, we also may lose the opportunity of the building that I was talking about. We're building, but it's a bit arduous this particular week. So Monday may feel as though we've got the open field. We can see the terrain. We know where we're going. And the temptation may be to move forward quickly. But keep in mind that reminder, caveat of Mercury retrograde. And we are best served by making sure we've understood exactly where we're going, because things may change. And the change can come in more on Tuesday the 5th, when basically we're presented with, oh, no, you don't have everything you need, all the papers in order. You have to have this in place first. This needs to be considered before we go there. And that's why it is so super important to make sure you know where you're at. Also, remember, Moon and Sag, adaptability, very important. So if some of us get hit with that news of, oh, wow, you wanted to go on this trip, but the car is not going to pass inspection, or you don't have everything you need to go the distance, then how do you adapt? How do you still keep on the deadline or the thought process or what it was? And I'm using the car as a metaphor. It may not be that you're actually taking a journey, but whatever it is, how do you adapt to approach the project from a different channel? Or maybe you take the train, or maybe you use a different platform if it's an electronic process. Whatever it is you're doing, the most important thing is, what was the priority? We don't want to get so hung up on whatever may have derailed us or gotten in our way, that we're not sticking to whatever that most important thing was that needed to be happening. And maybe there's nothing that is super important to get accomplished this week. And so you can have more flexibility. But for those of us who really are aiming towards something, then just know adaptability is going to be your superpower. Basically over the course of the week, but certainly on Monday into Tuesday morning. So the moon goes void, of course, at 11:29 a.m. Tuesday morning, and the times they give are Eastern time. So you may need to change that, the times I'm giving you based on where you live. And then it doesn't enter Capricorn until 1:04 p.m. So, basically an hour and a half, nothing huge. But once it enters Capricorn, then we're still dealing with what I've already spoken about, in that some of us will be presented with a lot of different options and ways to go. And that's why considering your main objective is going to give you the most bang for your buck or the greatest return. And this also depends on flexibility, because if that objective maybe can invite in some new tangents or networking or new options or other things you want to play with, well, that's great. But you know what your major goal, achievement, or desire is. And you want to take that into account in spite of whatever may get thrown in front of your path that looks very compelling, but may be just a distraction. The biggest challenges of the day may occur in the late afternoon, early evening. And these kind of challenges will come in the guise of being something that perhaps you want to structure and accomplish a different way, but you're getting a perhaps new opinions or different ways of seeing it. An example, let's say you are occupied with design or some sort of architectural thing that needs to be formulated. And then what occurs is, oh, well, why don't we add this element to it to give it more to create more harmony or inviting people in, or something that works better with nature. And all these things may be great ideas. And the thing that's important is to think in terms of how do you complete throughout your day whatever it is that maintains the structure integrity. So, okay, maybe there is a way to create more of something that is ecological, and again, I'm speaking in just whatever the story is that's coming into my head. This may look very different. It may be about perhaps a course of action that one wanted to take in some financial or medical capacity, and then they're being invited, or there's an introduction to think in terms of, well, what if we speculate on this? Or what if we try this alternative or different method? And it's not necessarily that any of these things are bad. What is important, though, is maintaining whatever structural integrity needs to be in place. And so that is advisable on this day, Tuesday the 5th. And when we go into Wednesday the 6th, the moon goes void, of course, at 1:40 p.m. And it is void, of course, once that occurs, into the next day. So this is a very long void, of course. This is also when Mars enters the sign of Libra, and it does that at 7:23 p.m. So air and fire signs may notice in the evening, you get this kind of, feeling a little more jazzed because Mars is moving from an earth sign into an air sign. And so some of us, especially those who are more Mars sensitive, like Aries, um, Scorpios to some extent, but I would say mainly if they have air and fire also dominant in their horoscope, or Mars in a prominent position, rising perhaps, or on midheaven. You may notice this kind of, I'm feeling more action oriented, a little more juice there in a way that has to do with how I transmit ideas. We want to measure that because Mercury's retrograde. So sometimes that feeling of, let me get this idea across is, let me make sure I articulate this in the way it is best transmitted, with the moon being void of course. Very positive things to process are working on things already in motion, cleaning stuff up, clearing out files. If you're clearing out files in the computer, just make sure you're backing everything up because of the retrograde. But it's a great time to purge or put things in place so that when the moon is moving in connection with another planetary energy and into another sign, that we're able to pick up that momentum. Now, on the 7th, the moon is void of course in the sign of Capricorn until it enters Aquarius at 9:18 p.m. So you see, these are very long void of course periods, and it's basically about a day and a half of the void of course activity, which is really terrific for setting up a clear platform for how you want to launch into what goes on when we're in that full moon energy. And because the moon is in the sign of Capricorn during this very long void of course, that's why I think it's also really, really good at just applying for the task at hand, like showing up, doing things that need to be done, putting your house in order, so that when the moon moves into the sign of Aquarius in the late evening on the 7th, you can just let all the inspiration run. And it may well do that. Air and fire signs may get particularly jazzed. If you're not a night owl, you certainly might want to have closed down your electronics before that happens, because otherwise there may be a lot of going down the rabbit hole, which might be fun if you can stay up late and function the next day. But if it's better to have restorative sleep, then I would suggest a better way perhaps to use this late evening time is sharing ideas with people that you like to talk with, or play around with thoughts, or reading, writing, doing things that have to do with some kind of experimentation. So all that is wonderful to invite in and allow whatever is coming in as we maximize this full moon energy. Because the full moon, the moon in Aquarius, is lit by the Leo sun. And Leo in its inherent energy is the divine child. It's the bright light that comes in, the birth of the new. It is basically the story of how the child comes into the world and can change the world and brings in the physical manifestation of what we anticipate is hope, creativity, and the new. And so that Leo energy in its purity is curious, bright, expressive, shares joy, shares a sense of, I want to tell you a story. I want to fill you with your ultimate potential. And so that lighting up the Aquarius, which is air sign, cool, objective, detached, it fires it up with a sense of how the individual shines within the collective. Because the Aquarius energy is about how we can co-create and collaborate to create a new reality. And so each individual that puts their soul energy, their life, like it's like coals in the furnace that can burn so bright and create the new reality, the new world that we must create if we want the human experiment to continue. So this wonderful energy that is stoking late this evening into the next day is just so fiery and intense. And the ideas could be like popcorn, just really boom, 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 coming out. And that can be incredibly exciting. It can also keep some of us from sleeping. I'm not anticipating having a good night's sleep that night, but I am looking forward to it, especially because the few days preceding it are going to feel like, not really like a vacuum or a void, but this sense of anticipation about what's coming. And so leave yourself open to revelation, expectation, inspiration, and capture it however you can, like butterflies in a net. But you don't want to contain them and trap them. You want to observe them, get the idea, and release. And so that is why it's so important to, however you capture the image or the idea or the thought process or the tactile response, capture it, because it's something that you're going to be able to use and expand when you allow it in. So August the 8th, Friday, here's what's happening this day. This is a really poppin' day. And that's because one of the things that occurs when the moon is in the sign of Aquarius is Pluto, the planet that symbolizes irrevocable transformation, is now in Aquarius, very early degrees. So that conjunction, when the moon is in exact alignment with Pluto way out in the sky, occurs in the wee hours on August 26th. And so the dream realm can be very intense. The other thing that can occur for people who are having Pluto transits at this point in time, so people who are born in early degrees of air or fire signs may be feeling this acutely. Also, fixed signs, early degrees, may be feeling this acutely, is a lot of memories, a lot of information from the unconscious in the dream world. And if you're not in a therapeutic process, it may be a creative exploration coming through in art, in writing, in song and music, however whatever that way of creation happens. Other people, there's all kinds of ways we create. And so don't hold it back, because what's happening is something is rising up. And the more conscious we are of whatever it is that's kind of erupting and needs to come to the surface, is where we're going to find the jewels. Pluto was the god of the underworld. The great wealth of resource exploration is what is actually inside of the earth. And not that I'm advocating, drilling and mining and digging that stuff up, but minerals, jewels, all this is in the interior. So when we look at that as a symbolic resonance with human beings, it's about plumbing the unconscious, finding the jewels. And yes, sometimes it's really dark and scary in those minds. But when we unearth and understand them, then we get fuel. We feel empowered. But it's really important to understand them and not be driven by unconscious reactions. So throughout this day, the other thing that's occurring, Mars again is in Libra. So it too is making a dance with Uranus. Uranus is in the sign of Gemini now, another air sign. And Mars is also approaching a picture with Pluto. So picture this, what we're having is Mars is in Libra, air sign. It is trining Uranus in Gemini, air sign, and then trining Pluto in Aquarius, air sign. Incredibly powerful grand trine. Babies are being born with this grand trine energy. It is a creative furnace. Awesome. And how do we employ it in a way that's constructive, active, and focused? So the more we pay attention to that, the more we know how to channel, utilize that fuel for its most constructive expression. The other thing that's going on is that Mars is also traveling. It's going to be in opposition with Saturn and Neptune, because Saturn and Neptune are in the fire sign Aries. So it's a rocket. It's an absolute rocket of energy. As I make this picture, as I'm talking, what I'm seeing is this powerful configuration that is moving, we might say more like a kite, where you've got this triangle and then the straight line of Mars to Saturn, Neptune. And so you've got this configuration that is in movement, and Mars is driving. So the more conscious we're directing that assertive, aggressive energy, the better. It is in Libra, the mediator. So the hope, as you work on your meditation with this full moon energy, think of the hope and direction of especially the world leaders working on negotiating, mediate, doing diplomatic effort to drive a new direction, because we're seeing tremendous aggression a lot that is not really directed towards what is giving us a more peaceful and cooperative reality. So Saturday the 9th is when the full moon actually occurs. And that happens at 3:55 a.m. Eastern time. And the moon is at 17 degrees Aquarius exact. So if you have 17 degrees anywhere in your horoscope, you are getting this vibration of that full moon. But we all are feeling it in some degree or another. The question is how much you're feeling it, or are you willing to work with the energy I've been speaking of? Because it's falling somewhere in your horoscope. So if you know where Aquarius and Leo are in your horoscope, and they're going to be in opposite houses, wherever that falls, then that shows you what is being activated, what areas of life are really pushing you in a direction of expressing your unique self within the collective. Because the collective needs are individual voices in which we can create a chorus that is a new harmonization of how we go forward and what it is we're going to create. Silence. I just always remember this mantra that first surfaced when the horrible disease AIDS was discovered in the 1980s. But it was just a very simple phrase that was everywhere, plastered in the subway, all little notes all throughout New York City where I lived. Silence equals death. And that mantra, that phrase is, yes, it was about, at that point in time, it was about AIDS, but it is about don't remain silent. If you have something that you are here to express, bring it life. Let it be heard. It is important that our voices, our independent thought, and I'm talking about independent thought, not, getting just sort of bludgeoned with somebody else's message, but independent thought. We need to hear it. It's good. So once the moon hits that exact opposition to the sun at 3:55 a.m. on Saturday the 9th, we've got another void of course day. Only this time it's in the sign of Aquarius. So I think that Saturday the 9th is an absolutely delicious day to be in the company of human beings, exchange ideas. Most likely, it's probably better to be in the company of like-minded people because, as I said, with void, of course, you're not gonna change the world, but you can kind of create a resonance. It's wonderful to be in nature, to be in a group of people, perhaps who are meditating or in a space of community service. All these things are really wonderful to do. Networking without expecting anything to go anywhere, but just maybe working on a project that everybody is in sync with. Absolutely super for that. The moon enters Pisces 2:50 a.m. on Sunday the 10th. And this is actually a really lovely day. We have pre-dawn. There's a little aggravant of energy, which might be about feeling a little discord. So anyone who's up before 5 a.m. Eastern time may experience it directly. Other people may wake up a little unsettled from a dream. But once we pass that, we're in this really sweet energy that is about making good connections. So follow through with whatever the dream is. Follow through. Yes, we're now in the waning moon cycle, but there's a lot more to do. And you can have a really beautiful, delicious Sunday. Get yourself in some nature, near some water, and enjoy. You have been listening to Astrology Insight Now. Please share with your friends. And if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at astrologyinsightnow.com. Have a stellar week, and we hope to see you next time.